I'm getting ready for a new mixed media class. It's Surface Techniques 1.0. And mixed media art involves using a lot of different type of media, using paint and watercolors, creating layers for texture. And I'm going to be using gesso today. Now I've got a store-bought brand of gesso here that I'm going to use, and I've got some homemade gesso that I made with white paint and some talcum powder and water and some white glue. So you can make some of your art supplies quite inexpensively. Gesso comes in various thicknesses. What I'm going to do today is use just a medium thickness of gesso and create some texture with it. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to put some gesso down on my paper. It might be a little bit hard to see. Gesso can be tinted, and you can also add a gel medium to it to create like a glaze. Now look at that nice gloopy gesso. This is just a little spatula I found at the thrift store, and I'm just going to smear this on here. I really do want that texture to pop up from my little brush strokes here. But I'm going to have some areas where I'm going to show you some other techniques. So let's put that over here. And if you notice on my workspace, I'm working on some brown packing paper. It came in a box that was delivered. This will probably go into some kind of a project later. So I've got a nice goopy layer of gesso on there. I can put another piece of paper on. I love the way this texture works. I can put another piece of paper on, and of course you all know what's going to happen if I pull this off. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? Of course, I've got two papers now with that luscious layer. I can stamp in the gesso, so I can make some texture that way by stamping. And I've got some gesso on my stamp, so I can take it over to some places where there's not a lot and clean it off. I can use my palette knife to scribe some lines in here. I can also use the side of a straw to create some interesting texture. This is a plastic knife. This is from a Scotch tape roll. Let's see. Let's move over to this side here. I can use a stamp and stamp into the gesso, move some of the gesso around and create a nice texture. And again, I've got some of that gesso on my paper, so I can move that gesso from one place to another. You can see the nice kind of texture it makes. This is the end of my paintbrush. I can use that to scribe as well. Put some little circles in these. Corkscrew. All right, there's a couple of pages with some really nice texture on it. Let's do some more. The gesso also gives your paper, and this is just regular typing paper, a nice sort of fabric-y feel. See this old brush? I love this because it's going to create some nice texture on here. Okay, and I'll come in with my stamp a little bit again. And maybe I'll use the spatula. I'm almost creating a composition here with the texture that I'm putting in to the gesso. I'll come back in and stamp some more maybe over here. All right. Got one more paper here ready for some gesso. This time, I'm going to use some of my homemade gesso, which is a little thinner. Oh, there we go. And I'm going to use my paintbrush. I'm going to get a different kind of texture because this is thinner. Now, one nice thing that I also like to use gesso for, while this is still wet, I'm going to create some of that texture with a knife. Get some circles in there. I'll come in with this little corkscrew. Back in with this, and here I've got a wooden. This will give me a different kind of texture. I just grabbed some things. You have a lot of things in your kitchen, in your garage, in your tool chest that you can use to create interesting texture. Here, I'll use a bottle top. Okay, so when these dry, we'll be able to paint on them with either watercolors or with thinned down acrylic, and you'll see some really interesting effects. You'll get to see that texture that I've been talking about.